Good morning, everybody. Welcome To The Point. Hope we all had a great long weekend. Back with you live this morning to react to a big weekend in the world of sports. A lot going on, a lot happening. We got the conference finals in the NBA and the NHL set to drop in the next couple days. Xander Schauffele, much to my surprise, wins a major in a very entertaining Sunday at Valhalla, which we'll talk about later on in the show. Tyson Fury, his first pro loss to Alexander Usyk over the weekend in a very entertaining fight down in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So, lot to catch up on, lot to talk about. Also, the Maple Leafs have hired a head coach, so we will talk about that as well later on in the program. But let's start with the game last night. The Edmonton Oilers, it took 7 games, shouldn't have took 7 games, but after 7 games, they are headed to the conference final for the second time in 3 years to take on the Dallas Stars. Dallas got by Colorado in 6 games, a double overtime win on Friday night, and if you were watching that game ended at 2:58 a.m., and I know that because I was up. But Edmonton now gets Dallas. They overcome a gutsy, a Rick Tocchet-like hockey team where they eliminated ice, eliminating scoring opportunities, and played just a boring, mundane style where you're not as talented as your opponent, but you're aware of that, and you use what you can to your advantage. That big defense, good back checking, blocking shots. Until last night, every game seemed to be a low shots, low shot attempts, no high danger opportunities. In game 6, where Edmonton ultimately won that game 5-1, at the 14-minute mark of the second period, the shots were 6-4 for Edmonton, a 1-1 game. That's how Vancouver wanted to play. They had over 30 shots in only one of 13 games during the course of this postseason. They were not running gun. They were not trying to come at you in waves of speed and talent, but they had their way of approaching the game. And I think they could have been more aggressive if their best players, Elias Pettersson, came to play. And I thought he was really good last night, and I thought he was pretty good in Game 5, but his good games to mediocre games to poor games was not good enough to justify playing a different style. But the Edmonton Oilers are an interesting case study. Because you look at them and go, well, McDavid's got 21 points, Draisaitl's got 24 points, Evan Bouchard, a defenseman, has 22 points after the first 2 rounds. The first team to have 3 players have over 20 points after the first 2 rounds in NHL Stanley Cup playoff history, which is something else when you think of it. You think it would be an Oilers team just with different guys, but they are setting records here. Last night, it wasn't about McDavid. It wasn't about Draisaitl per se, although I thought they were good. The first goal of the game goes to Cody Ceci, a bullet, top shelf. Then Evan Bouchard gets on the board. Then you see a goal on the power play by Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And in the end, it was about the Oilers hanging on after giving up 2 in the third period. Chris Knobloch calling a timeout, gathering the troops, settling down, and winning that hockey game. I predicted the Oilers would win the Stanley Cup. I'm not out on them yet. But going into this next series, they have to play better if they are going to beat the Dallas Stars. Dallas is coming into this series a little wounded, like I thought they would be when the playoffs started. Rupe Hintz, not practicing. Hockey Panya, not practicing, a big defenseman on the back end. They have people who might not be available for the start of this series, or will likely be playing the rest of the postseason a little bit hindered. And Edmonton's got Adam Henrique is also injured, so he's not available. But Edmonton is a lot healthier than Dallas. But Dallas was in the conference final last year. They have a lot of experience. Peter DeBoer, and this is a crazy statistic, he's been in 5 of the last 6 Western Conference finals with 3 separate teams. It's an unbelievable thing to think about. But the man's been on good teams. He's a successful coach. He knows what he's doing. Looking at these two teams, Dallas is a physical bunch, and they want to wear you down. Hit hard, hit late, make it chippy. Because they can't compete with the speed of the Edmonton Oilers. McDavid, Draisaitl can blow past anybody. Bouchard's no slouch on the back end. But the thing for Dallas that I think they have advantage on over Edmonton is that any of the 4 lines for Dallas can be dangerous. Where you look at Edmonton and Janmark, Connor Brown, Fogle, they haven't given you a whole lot over the course of this postseason. They haven't been dangerous. They haven't really contributed all that much. So you look around and go, well, what am I going to get from them? What are they going to produce in this game? And you don't really know. So, to me, this series is about Edmonton and if they can overcome the game plan of the Dallas Stars. Can their speed and their constant pressure cause problems for Dallas? Can they get on the power play and be dangerous on said power play? And Dallas's penalty kill has not been good in the postseason so far, and Edmonton's power play is one of the best in the league, regular season or playoffs. So can you get guys to say, I can't catch him, I'm going to trip him, see what I can do here. I have to do this to avoid a goal going in. And I do think that can happen for the Edmonton Oilers. But also, Dallas is a smart team. They were the better team during the regular season. They won 2 of the 3 matchups this year. They've looked good in the playoffs so far. To me, they played a much tougher opponent in the second round. If you look at their pathway so far, they beat Vegas, the defending champion. Then you get Colorado, with likely the Hart Trophy winner Nathan MacKinnon on that roster, with Rantanen and Makar, the best defensemen in the world. So there's a lot of potholes for that team to get over. Stuart Skinner still worries me from an Edmonton Oilers fan. Last 2 games, you can say he only allowed 3 goals, but I thought the Edmonton Oilers were really good in front of him. They defended much better. They didn't allow a whole lot of scoring opportunities, as I just mentioned. But Dallas is better than Vancouver. Dallas has more ways of creating offense than the Vancouver Canucks. If you look, last night, Stuart Skinner faced 17 shots. And you still allowed 2 of them. It's an .882 save percentage. That's not going to win you a series against the Dallas Stars, where Jake Ottinger has been phenomenal. He's been game. He's been game the last 2 years. He's one of the best young goalies in the sport, period. End of story. Edmonton can get production like they did last night from their back end. Shots from the point, get traffic in front, create havoc, piss off Dallas, force them to take stupid penalties, go after Heiskanen, go after Esa Lindell. So I think if you're Edmonton, you can look at them and go, they have 4 guys that play big minutes on this team, and they're right. Heiskanen, Lindell is out there for most of the game, where Niles Lundqvist hardly gets a shift. He plays 5 minutes a game as a defenseman. He sits on the bench the rest of the night. Ryan Suter averages 18 minutes. Thomas Harley plays a ton. We have 3 or 4 guys that are out there for the majority of the game. Wear them down. Make it a difficult series. Evander Kane, this is your moment to shine. Continue to be productive offensively when you're given the opportunity, but be physical. Throw hits. Be a pain in the ass. Because when Dallas wants to get chippy and the refs want to get their whistles out, it favors Edmonton. Yes, Dallas has a good power play as well, with Jason Robertson and Heiskanen and little Joe Pavelski and Wyatt Johnson, who up till now, if I had to put money on it, he's the Conn Smythe Trophy winner of the Stanley Cup playoffs after 2 rounds. But even with all that collection of talent, it still favors Edmonton, because on the other side you have McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Bouchard, Hopkins. Nugent Hopkins had 100 points last year. McDavid had 160. Draisaitl might be the best playoff performer in the sport of any player. If you look at what he did last year, what he's done through 2 rounds this year, he's got 24 points, which leads the entire league. The dude is just a gamer. He doesn't stop. I think if they stay at the same level that they're playing, Dallas will win the series. Because Dallas is playing at a higher level right now than Edmonton is. Edmonton has a higher barrier of entry because they need to find that. I thought they were really good in the first round. They play a Vancouver team that doesn't have a number 1 goalie, that's hindered, that doesn't have Brock Besser in Game 7 due to blood clots, and hopefully he's okay. And you're like, well, where is it? Where is the game that we're hoping to see here? And we never really did. However, before the playoffs started, I predicted the Oilers would win the Cup. And I predicted this would be the conference final matchup, which it is. It's a war of attrition. You have to survive the series. You don't get style points. It doesn't matter how you get past them. It's just, can you get past them? And Edmonton has. And you give them credit for that. I expect this to be a tough series because Dallas will bring it. And looking on FanDuel Sportsbook, gonna look up the odds in this series. Dallas will certainly be the favorite. You have Edmonton, who's got the 3rd best odds to win the Stanley Cup right now. Behind the Stars, Panthers, and the Rangers, the best team in the regular season, are in dead last right now at plus 360, which is interesting. So, while Dallas is playing better right now. I think Edmonton's going to find a way because they have too much talent. And they're not playing run and gun. It's not we got to beat you 7-6. They defended well the last couple of games to win this series. Down 3-2 like they were last year, except this year they find a way to win that series. They come in and face a tough opponent that have experience. But the time they got to the conference final prior to this, they played the Colorado Avalanche, and Colorado ultimately went on to win the Cup. And if they lose to Dallas, Dallas very well could go end up winning the Cup themselves. But look at that Colorado team. McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, Gabriel Landeskog. As much as I love the Dallas Stars, and I think Wyatt Johnson will be on Team Canada at the Olympic Games, they are not that team. Johnson's great. Heiskan's one of the best defensemen in the sport. But they have a lot of guys who, while very productive, good players, aren't necessarily in their prime right now. And I don't know if they can continue the production. Dallas combines a better team than Edmonton. Because you look at Edmonton, you go Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Bouchard. But it gets thin after you name those guys. Where Dallas, you can go deeper into the CV and find what you're looking for. I got Edmonton winning this series in 7 games. It's going to go the distance. It's going to be physical. I expect this to be a good series. I like Peter DeBoer, so I'd be happy for him if he would win as well. But to me, there's just something about this Edmonton team, and I've talked about this before. McDavid is the best player in the sport. And the best players in their respective sports find a way to win. In the NBA, Michael Jordan, it took him a number of years, but then he went on to win 6 with the Chicago Bulls. Mario, you get Yager, Ronnie Francis, you put a great team together in Pittsburgh, you win a cup. For Wayne Gretzky, failure after failure, you're playing the Islanders, a dynasty team. You lose to them one year, the next year you overcome them and you win your first cup and you go on to win 4. The best players, it's really rare to see the best at what they do not find a way to win. The Dan Marino not winning a Super Bowl is the exception to the rule, if you ask me. Because Elway won. Terry Bradshaw won. Troy Aikman won. There's guys in the league who were very good players, but they were never looked at as the best. Joe Thornton did not win a Stanley Cup. Hall of Famer, great player, but he was never the best player in the world. Drew McGinley, great power forward, one of the great Canadians to ever put on the Maple Leaf sweater. Olympic champion, best player in Flames history. But was he ever looked at as the best player in the world? No. The best players win. Nick Lidstrom won. Scott Niedermayer won. Chris Pronger won. Carey Price, another exception to the rule, got close, but ultimately never won the big one. I believe that the best players will win. And while Edmonton is flawed like every team, I think they have enough this year to get to the Stanley Cup final. And maybe they won't beat Florida or maybe they won't beat the Rangers, but they'll get farther than they have before. Expect this to be a fun series. If Edmonton's going to win, they need to pick up their game, and I expect them to. But I got Edmonton winning in 7 and McDavid advancing to his first Stanley Cup final in his career. In the Eastern Conference, Panthers, Rangers. Rangers, the President's Trophy winners, who, as we talked about on Friday, had a gutsy performance from Chris Kreider in Game 6 with a natural hat trick. Just phenomenal showing from him. He is Mr. Ranger. He's the heart and soul of that team. Florida needed an incredible shot block from their captain that saved the game. Then Gustav Forsling scores a weird goal. They beat Boston 2-1, and they advance back to the conference final for the second straight year, just like the Dallas Stars. The New York Rangers were in the Stanley Cup final back in 2014. They lost Game 7 overtime to Los Angeles with a goal from Alec Martinez. Since then, they've been competitive. They went through a rebuild that was quick. Went through a couple different coaches. You bring on Peter Laviolette. You have a great regular season. Panarin over 100 points. Fox continues to get better. K'Andre Miller takes a step. And Igor Shesterkin has been the best goalie in the postseason thus far. While Florida, it's been a similar script. After last year's postseason, Florida was looked at as a different team. They weren't the 8th seed anymore. They weren't lucky to be here. They go on to win the Atlantic Division. They have a great second half from Matthew Tkachuk, Carter Verhaeghe, 57 goals from Sam Reinhart. They re-signed Gustav Forsling to an 8-year deal, and he's fantastic. But you look at the Montour expiring contract, Reinhart expiring contract. It's a get-it-done moment for the Florida Panthers. Florida's built for the playoffs. They proved it last year. Tough out for anybody. They have a whole lot of gamers on that team, and they're not afraid of anybody. And I think that's a skill in and of itself. Round 1, they take down their arch rival, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who beat them a number of years ago, sweeping them when Florida were the President's Trophy winners. They then take on the Boston Bruins in the second round. And while Boston was not a tough opponent, while Boston was kind of a fraud team from Jump Street, it's not easy to win at the TD Garden. And in the postseason, Florida has won their last 6 games at the TD Garden, which to me, you get props for that. That's hard to do. Looking at this series, to me, for Florida to lose, they have to play stupid. They have to take penalties, and they'd have to get shitty goaltending. I think if they get adequate goaltending, play majority of the series 5-on-5, they win this series in 6 games. Because while, yes, I've overlooked the Rangers all year, I had the Rangers missing the playoffs before the year started. I had the Rangers as a fraud group, and they go on to have a great season. If you watch the Rangers 5-on-5 during these playoffs against either Washington, who stink, or Carolina, who's a good team, they will not impress you. The Rangers, at their core, minus a few guys, Trocheck, Kreider, Zibanejad to an extent, like to play on the outside. Like to not be involved in the physical areas, not go to the rough and tumble places it takes to win, which is why they haven't won a whole lot over the last number of years. But they will blend it in, mix it in with an excellent power play, with incredible guts from guys like Kreider, Adam Fox, who's spectacular, Truba, who's the butcher who scares every opponent that he plays against. Then you have yourself a team, not to mention Igor Shesterkin is phenomenal. He's another guy you look at, he could be the best player at his position, and you say he'll win a Stanley Cup one day, although it's tougher for goalies. I have respect for the Rangers, but to me, in that Carolina series, outside of the third period in Game 6, the second period in Game 1, I don't know if they played better than the Hurricanes in any other period in that series. I'll say this till the cows come home. Carolina is better than the New York Rangers. Carolina would be a tougher opponent for the Florida Panthers. Florida has their pitfalls. Aaron Ekblad can have games where he looks like he wants to be on Mars. He will throw the puck laser beams to people on the other team tape to tape. He'll pinch for no goddamn good reason. Florida will take stupid penalties. Kachuk will do it occasionally. You look at individuals like Reinhart will do it. You have, Holmberg, Lomberg, at the bottom of their lineup. Nick Cousins, kind of a ratty guy that can take penalties. But if they play with their head, if they play 5-on-5 and just say, let's play the game tonight. Let's play and see what happens. I think more often than not, they're going to win that game against most teams in the league because they just know how to play this time of year. They're a really good team. They have a lot of different ways that they can beat you. They'll go in the corners. They'll come out with the puck. They'll muck it up. They'll play run and gun. Whoever you want to go, they'll go. And I don't think the Rangers can say that. The Rangers have a jab. But if the opposing fighter wants to take the fight to the ground and wants to grapple, wants to do some jiu-jitsu, wants to wrestle, the Rangers don't have a counterpunch to that. They don't know how to get up. They don't know how to defend. Before too long, the fight will be over because they will be tapping to an arm triangle. That's where I see the Panthers. They have more outs. They have more ways. They're a boa constrictor. They will wrap themselves around you and choke you out. While the Rangers, while pretty, style, great passes, fast up the wing, fun to watch, it's that or nothing. The Rangers haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1994. Florida has never won a Stanley Cup ever, although they were in the Stanley Cup final last year. So they got very close to winning it all, very close to becoming champions, but they didn't. They won it again. Bill Zito, the GM, has constructed a really good roster in Florida. A smart team, different ways they can beat you, a motivated, good coach in Paul Maurice, who looked like he was going to retire, but then saw the team that was around him and said, you know what, I'm going to come back, see if I can win a Stanley Cup to end my career. I expect the Rangers to put up a fight. I expect this series to be close at times. But I'm sticking with the final I had before the playoffs started. Oilers, Panthers. Because in this case, the Panthers are better. Bobrovsky, not as good as Shesterkin, but he's not a bad goaltender. Bobrovsky was nominated for the Vezina this year. He has not been as good these playoffs as he was last year, but he can turn on his game. He can morph into that guy. Hasn't had to be that good in the first couple rounds. Maybe he will be in the back 2 rounds this year. Maybe he'll learn to kind of conserve his energy a little bit. Filipino practicing for the Rangers yesterday. Blake Wheeler also said he will be available for the Rangers if they need him in this series. So Rangers are getting reinforcements health-wise. They have a lot of different options, which is great for them. But Bennett's playing. Barkov's healthy. Sounds like his hand's okay. I thought he broke it when he blocked that shot. Kachuk's there. Forsling. Montour. So we got two pretty healthy teams going into battle to face one another. The Rangers hoping to accomplish what the Panthers did last year, and that's get to a Stanley Cup final. The Panthers hoping to do what they did last year as well, get back to the Stanley Cup final. Series opens tomorrow. Conference finals begin tomorrow in the NHL at the Mecca in New York, Madison Square Garden. Should be a great atmosphere. The celebs can't go watch the Knicks anymore, so they'll likely be watching the Rangers. I got Panthers in 6. Panthers ruining it for the NHL when it comes to ratings. They want to see the Rangers win. They want that New York market in the Stanley Cup final. For me, the Panthers are a better team, top to bottom. Different ways that they can beat you. I got Panthers in 6 getting back to a Stanley Cup final for the second straight year. But it's hard to do. Who knows? It's so hard to win. There's a lot of great teams. And Florida might be one of them. Florida might be one of them to just go, wow, we got so close. Number one. Those great San Jose teams with Thornton and Pavelski and Marlowe, Couture, Vlasic, Brent Burns. They never won. They got to a Stanley Cup final, but they didn't win. That Rangers team in 2014 was a really good team, but the Kings and the Blackhawks owned that period. Difficult. Boston, during their elite run, only won one championship. The Bruins are a lot like the Celtics, where you go, well, they had good teams for a decade, which is true, but they only won one. Because it's really hard to win. You need a lot of things to go right. You need other teams to stumble. You need breaks to go your way. We'll see. I think we're getting 2 really good conference finals. My only incorrect pick so far for the conference finals was the Rangers. They beat Carolina. I did not see that, but 3 out of 4, I'll take that for the old ego. But other than the games taking place, the Toronto Maple Leafs made a coaching hire on Friday that was no surprise. It was going to be Craig Berube. It ended up being Craig Berube, signing him to a 4-year contract. Here's the thing. Do I think he's a good head coach? Yes. He's a Stanley Cup champion. Good pedigree, good cachet, you can throw at people. But, and there's always a but, to quote Tony Kornheiser. If the Toronto Maple Leafs don't make good trades and they don't supply Craig Berube with a goaltender in the next couple of years, he will be looked at as a failure of a head coach. Period. Because Jordan Binnington, for a stretch, for a spring, was the best goaltender in the world. And he's never been the best goaltender in the world since, but he didn't have to be anymore for Craig Berube, because in 2019, Binnington was phenomenal. Great story, playing for the Bruins AHL team that year on loan, then comes back, plays for Peoria in the AHL, ends up getting back to the National Hockey League, goes on the run, ends up playing the Bruins in the Stanley Cup Final, and wins Game 7 in Boston to win the 2019 Stanley Cup. So Chief has that pedigree, but without Jordan Binnington, he doesn't have a Stanley Cup, and he's not looked at as this great coach. He'd be a Todd McClellan who's out there looking for a gig, despite the fact that he's never won a Stanley Cup as a head coach. And it's a harder sell. Joseph Woll could be Carey Price. Who knows? Unlikely, but he could be. Max Domi made that comparison this year, and he played with Carey Price before. But while Carey Price had his demons, alcohol, injuries, at least early in his career, he played. He was available. Joseph Woll plays 3 games and he has a disc thrown out in his back and he's gone for 3 months. And if your number one, quote unquote, guy is not available and you're playing number 2s or number 3s and you don't have a style like Rick Tocchet, you're not going to win. Or you look at Vancouver and say, well, they didn't win either. They got to the second round, Game 7, they lost. So, good season, but ultimately, you still don't win. If I'm Rick Tocchet and I'm taking the New Jersey or the Toronto job, and I think those are the 2 best jobs available, I would want an assurance that a good goaltender is coming to town. Because yes, it's all good to make 4-year contract, and it wasn't reported how much it's worth. But let's say it's 4 years in the ballpark of $20 million, and that's what I think it is. 5 a year, maybe it's 4.5, but it's in that range. 4 years, around $20 million. Yes, it's great to make the money, and it helps your kids and your grandkids and everybody else, right? But you want to win as well. You're a competitor. You don't just go out there to collect a check. You want to put the only guy who did that recently was Phil Jackson when he became the president of the Knicks and he was sleeping scouting games. And he just wasn't into it. He took a check because the Knicks would pay him and he did a shitty job and he still made the money. Which, you know what? Good on him. He's an 11-time champion. But Craig Berube wants to, you can say a lot of different things. You can go to Toronto and end a curse. 50 plus years of losing, 50 plus years of never winning a Stanley Cup, the most passionate fan base in Canada. You could end that. You are a hero forever. You don't have to buy a beer for the rest of your life in downtown Toronto. So, there's a lot there. A lot to look forward to. A lot to go, you know what? This is hell of an opportunity. I don't want to waste this. Not to mention, maybe you have a media career after if you do a good job coaching. So, if I'm Craig Berube, I would love to hear from management, yeah, we're bringing in a goalie. Whether that's Saros in Nashville, whether that's Markstrom in Calgary, I want somebody. It cannot, for me, be Joseph Woll and goaltender X. Because I don't care how disciplined we are. I don't care how much we play to our system and we roll lines like we did in St. Louis. I need somebody to make a fucking save. And the likelihood of those guys being available to make saves long enough for me to win, unlikely. For the longest time, Toronto has tried a style of shitty defense, adequate goaltending, and elite players up front. And it's won them nothing. Literally nothing. 8 years of one round. Maybe it's time to pivot. Wouldn't it be nice to have a number one goaltender? Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody where you go, yeah, he's one of the best goaltenders in the sport? Hands down. No debate. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We know that about Jacob Markstrom. We know that about UC Saros. Because if I didn't get that assurance and I got it from New Jersey, I'd rather have the New Jersey job. Because while New Jersey, and I heard this point made on Sportsnet last week, which made me laugh. Well, New Jersey hasn't really proved anything. New Jersey won a playoff round last year in 1 year. And they made the second round the same as Toronto. So in 1 year, they did what Toronto did in 8. New Jersey had a lot of injuries this year and missed the playoffs. Missing the playoffs and losing in the first round, there's no difference to me. If you're a fan and you want to split hairs, you want to give them credit for making the playoffs, losing in the first round, go ahead. Go ahead. You're a fan. I get it. You don't want me to put down the fan base, but losing in the first round, not making the playoffs, no real difference because guess what? New Jersey's a better draft pick. That's how I look at it. You played a week more than the Devils. You played a week more than Columbus. New Jersey's close. Jack Hughes is a stud. Luke Hughes is really damn good. I like Simon Nemec a lot. The kid can play. Dougie Hamilton, one of the 50 best defensemen in the world. We could argue one of the 50 best players in the world when he's locked and loaded. They have a good team. They had 3 guys that could have been playing in the American League all year as their goaltenders until they acquired Jake Allen. If Tommy Fitzgerald had the balls to pull the trigger on a Markstrom deal, they would have made the playoffs. And who knows, maybe they'd still be playing. But I didn't need to go into a deep dive on the Devils, but I like their team. And I like their future a lot. To me, it's a hell of a lot more complicated in Toronto because you got to ask guys to waive no moves to leave the team. Which who the hell knows if they will. But Marner trade has to turn into something. You need to get a goaltender. Even Ullmark, to me, in Boston is an upgrade on what the Leafs have. So I agree with the hire. They go from asshole, hard-nosed coach in Babcock. Players revolt, he's gone. You bring in the teacher's pet, Sheldon Keefe. Now you bring in the asshole, Craig Berube. That's the cycle. One to the next until something sticks or it never does. Or some teams just have fresh new coaches because their team stinks and experienced coaches don't want to go there. San Jose hire will likely be that way. But the Leafs made a good decision. Berube, good coach. Respected around the league for the way he played the game. One of the toughest players in league history, you could argue. So, I don't think there's a lot of great candidates available because sure looks like the league is saying you can't hire Joel Quenneville. And I don't get that. I don't agree with it. I think it's Bush League, quite frankly. But it sure looks that way because I think anybody with a brain would have hired him by now if they could have. But Todd McClellan, he's coached a lot of different places, and he's won nowhere coaching there. So that's not real sexy. You can go out there and hire Sheldon Keefe, the recently fired Sheldon Keefe. And I think Sheldon's a good coach. I think he's a good guy. And if he goes to New Jersey and they get Markstrom and they have the team that they have, I think he'll be successful because he's joining another Toronto situation with a better goaltender and better defense, which would be a great change of pace for him. But other than Berube, look around and I just go, Gerard Gallant, another guy who's coached in a lot of different spots and never really went anywhere. Like Los Angeles, you hear nothing about them. Jim Hiller, interim coach. He'll likely become the head coach. Because I don't know if they want to pay another coach to work while, having an average team. And is there anybody that they go, wow, that's super exciting. We'd love to have him. Difference maker as a head coach. Unlikely. Unless there's a guy in junior that they really like. So, this is the first step for the Maple Leafs is bringing on Craig Berube. But good on them. Fun. It'd be a fun coach to hear his comments. Interesting to see the way that he approaches coaching this team. St. Louis, he rolled 4 lines. And they did it on a way to a cup. But on St. Louis and the 4th line, he had a guy like Barbashev and Oscar Sundqvist. And they were really hard to play against, and they were effective. Parayko, Pietrangelo. His highest point getter was Ryan O'Reilly. He's never really coached a bona fide superstar. Well, he's got one now in Austin Matthews, and he's got a fringe superstar in Mitch Marner and Bill Nye, the wrist shot guy. I think 2 of the names I just said will be there when Chief coaches his first game. Marner, in all likelihood, will be somewhere else. Possibly Cancun, holding out for a new contract. But with all that being said, it's an interesting experiment on how he'll adjust to this new situation. More media, more attention. But it's the correct hire for the Maple Leafs because there really wasn't a whole lot of options for them to make, and they made the best of their situation. So credit to them. The Carolina Hurricanes, after losing on Thursday, announced Saturday night that head coach Rod Brind'Amour and his entire staff have been re-signed to a 5-year contract. Brind'Amour would have been the best free agent coach on the market. You could argue the best coach in the NHL. Incredibly productive in Carolina. Helped build really productive, good teams that have gotten close but haven't won the championship yet. This should happen. They didn't disclose how much money it is. Probably not as much as he deserves. He would have gotten more elsewhere. But his family's in Carolina. He's been in Carolina a long time. It's home for him. And he'll take the years over the amount of money, which credit to him. Here's the thing, if you're Tom Dundon and Donnie Waddell, and if you're Brind'Amour going to them, you go, we've had a lot of runs here. We've gotten close. Conference final last year. We had a good club. But now we got 8 UFAs. Pesci's likely gone. Not sure if we can keep Chatfield because I think a lot of teams are going to look at him and go, wow, that guy could play top 4 minutes if he's given an opportunity somewhere, which he can and will somewhere else. Marty Netcash, not a free agent, but his dad's already speaking out, upset about the way he's been used in Carolina. He's a top-end winger, wants a big contract his next time out. Carolina's likely not going to pay him. He could be on the move. Jake Gensel, pending unrestricted free agent, was good, not great, with Carolina. Reports he could go back to Pittsburgh. Don't understand that. But there will be interest from across the league for Jake Gensel's services. So this team's going to be different, like every team. But if I'm Rob Brendamore, I go, I've kind of proven you can give me anybody and I can coach them up. Jordan Martinook was in Arizona. Never heard of him. Just a kind of a guy down there who could have been out of the league. You bring him up here. His career best years. He's on our penalty kill. He's one of the best leaders we got. Anthony D'Angelo kicked off the Rangers roster for fighting with teammates. Comes here, has his best season of his career, played pretty well in the playoffs, and he's overcome it. Jordan Staal, career renaissance, still really productive. One of the best defensive centers in the game. He knows his role here, and he plays it extremely effectively. But if I'm Brendan Moore, I go to them and I go, so all that being said, that's what I've done here. Get me a goalie. Enough of this Spencer Martin, Korchkov, Freddie Anderson bullshit. You're giving me nothing. You're playing chess with a bunch of pawns and bishops. And I like a bishop as much as the next chess piece, but I want that goddamn rook too. In my opinion, the rook's the best chess piece, but that's another discussion for another day. Give me something. Give me something to work with here. And what's fascinating about this offseason is in the last 5 minutes, talked about Toronto, talked about New Jersey, talked about Carolina. 3 teams who probably think they have a chance to win the East going into next year, which isn't crazy to think on any of their behalves. So they look up and go, well, we need a goalie to do it. We need somebody to come out and produce. We need somebody to make a save in a big moment. We can't have a goalie who doesn't hug the post and lets in that squeaker from Chris Kreider that shifted the momentum of the game. Because Carolina, they got Nadeau coming in from UMaine. They have some good players pushing through. They'll be fine. But Rob Brennanmore's got to go, give me somebody competent. It's an arms race. Because Nashville doesn't want to lose Saros if they don't have to. Because they know he's a good goalie. Calgary knows if they trade Markstrom, they are officially telling the fan base that we are in a rebuild. We are de facto tanking and don't believe that we can be competitive for the next number of years. However, I will say for Calgary, I'd rather do it now because I have a good authority because my uncle told me they're starting to build the arena this summer after the Calgary Stampede. So I'd rather suck for the next 3 and then be good when the rink opens than be halfway decent, then start the tank when you open the new building in downtown Calgary. Just a thought, however. So all these teams have decisions to make. But if you're Carolina, it's no decision. We have to find one. Somebody has to end up on our roster. A goaltender of substance. a goaltender who can play, that can have a tangible impact on our team. A lot of teams are searching for them, and that's the problem. Islanders got Varlamov and Sorokin. Is Sorokin available? Patrick Waugh didn't like him, benched him when he got there. Would the Islanders trade Sorokin and his contract to a team? I'd call. Never say never. St. Louis. Would they trade Binnington? Sure, he's a head case, but he has won a Stanley Cup. Minnesota. Philip Gustafsson should be available this offseason. Pretty good goalie. Vegas. Aiden Hill, Logan Thompson. Couple goalies there that can play. John Gibson finally leading Anaheim. Is that happening finally? Linus Ullmark in Boston. They're going to keep Swayman. So would a team take a chance on Spencer Knight in Florida after playing a full year in the American Hockey League? Went through his problems. Was a first-round pick. Highly regarded goaltender. Just 23 years old. This year in Charlotte, .905 save percentage, .241 goals against average. Playoffs, 187 goals against, .925 save percentage. He might be worth a look. He's young enough where he can find his game. And you could probably get him for very little right now because of his problematic history. But again, a first-round talent goaltender that was in the American Hockey League all year. And Anthony Stolarz was a fantastic backup for Florida this year. So they might not want to part with him. They get assets. You get a goaltender. The goalie market will be robust. A lot of teams need one. Teams need to make a decision if they want to part with one. And if they can take advantage of teams on trades to help them in the future. Happy for Rob Brendamore that he's staying in Carolina. Happy for Craig Berube. We'll see what happens with New Jersey, San Jose, Los Angeles, Seattle. All those jobs need to be filled. You'd think they all could happen this week. There's not a deadline on it, but the NHL draft is June 28th, which is a little over a month. You think you'd like to have your head coach in place to start that process. Get ready to head to the Sphere and make your selections. But interesting for sure. And we'll see what happens moving forward here. But a lot to be done, but decisions this offseason. We still got 2 series left. That should be great. But these offseason dominoes will be fun to watch as well when the time comes. Let's move to the PGA Championship at Valhalla. I think people are going to remember this tournament for Scottie Scheffler. The world number one being arrested, put in an orange jumpsuit, and taken away. And that's too bad for guys like Bryson DeChambeau and the ultimate winner, Xander Schauffele, who shoots 21 under for the tournament, which is the lowest score in the history of majors, which is incredible. 20 under had been done, I think, 4 times. Nobody had shot 21 under at a major. Schauffele, the first one to do it. Bryson DeChambeau shoots 20 under at a major and doesn't win, which is pretty incredible. And what a shift for him. One of the most popular people at the majors now, off the PGA Tour, but more popular than ever, has an aura to him. People seem to dig him. Playing extremely good golf at the Masters and at the PGA. Put pressure on Schauffele down the stretch like Colin Morikawa did not do in the final group. But I got this one wrong. Xander Schauffele was second in the odds, which credit to these odds makers. They know what they're doing. I looked at Xander Schauffele and said, he's never going to win a major. He always gets close, but he's never won. He chokes it away like he did at Quail Hollow the week before against Rory McIlroy. But he's consistent. 62 on Thursday, 68, then shoots a 65 on Sunday, including a birdie on 18 to seal the victory. If you look at some of these numbers, DeChambeau, 68, 65, 67, 64. Rick Hovland, 68, 66, 66, 66. Some really good performances. Shane Lowry, Justin Rose couldn't have great days on Sunday to remain close, although they do finish inside the top 10. Scotty Scheffler has another top 10 finish, tied with Billy Horschel, Justin Thomas, Robert McIntyre. Rory McIlroy, 12 under, which is tied for 12th with 5 other men. I thought Morikawa would win the tournament. He finished the day even par. Couldn't make putts. Had opportunities. Schauffele was playing great in his same group, but he just couldn't find the touch. It was not his day. But he played well at the Masters. Played well at the PGA. Bodes well for him as the year goes on. Great for Xander. The way he was driving, he hit every fairway. So consistent. My one complaint is I thought the course was playing so easy. Guys were making it, and they normally do make it look easy, but it was not easy at the Masters. That was a low-scoring Masters. Hard conditions. Players had to persevere to win it. Or Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Ideal conditions, rolling putts. No real fear of making a mistake that's going to put you, through irreversible damage. So that's my one complaint with Valhalla is it didn't look like a major location. It looks as if you're playing at, the Travelers Championship in mid-July where a guy shoots 24 under and wins the event. And yeah, it's great to see when you're just watching golf. But when you're watching a major, for me, I want to see the guy struggle. I want to see them go through adversity to ultimately find a way to win. And we didn't really see that last night. We didn't see them have to earn it. But great call from Jim Nantz, per usual, with Xander winning the event because he's the best in the business. He's one of the best broadcasters in the history of the planet. But I thought Sunday was great. You had a lot of guys top of the leaderboard. You had DeChambeau putting pressure on him. DeChambeau on the range. Watching Schauffele putt the birdie to ultimately win the event. Scheffler didn't play well on Saturday. Otherwise, he very well could have been in this mix because he shoots 6 under on Sunday after being arrested and after all the crap he went through. Doing interviews with Amanda Balionis. He's a pro, still the best player in the world. He'll be ready for the U.S. Open. You know Scotty Scheffler. Change in the schedule. You have the Charles Schwab in Texas, which normally takes place this week. In the field, Scotty Scheffler is playing this week. So is Morikawa, Jordan Spieth, Max Homa, Tony Finau, Justin Rose, Tom Kim, Rick Fowler, Adam Svensson, defending champion Emiliano Grillo. So, really solid field in Texas. But after this weekend, for the first time in a number of years, moved up, we have the RBC Canadian Open the following weekend, May 30th to June 2nd at Hamilton Golf and Country Club, which is great. Usually it's a week before a major, and some people don't come. Field's not yet available. But remember last year, Tommy Fleetwood, Nick Taylor in the playoff, Adam Hadwin getting tackled after seeing Nick Taylor win. So you have that at the end of May, early June. Then you have the Memorial, which is Jack's tournament, one of the great courses in Muirfield Village in Ohio. Then we have the U.S. Open at Pinehurst Resort and Country Club in North Carolina, which is a difficult course. Followed by the Travelers. But next 3-4 weeks of golf will be very good. Good fields, good players, gearing up for the U.S. Open. But credit to Xander Schauffele. Was not a guy that could ever close, and he did it on Sunday. Now enters the major champion group. When you look back, you go, wow, that guy won one. Hell of a career. Really good golfer. Could win more. I mean, the way he plays, absolutely. But credit to Schauffele. Great Sunday. Really fascinating stuff. Before we wrap today, NBA Conference Finals begin tonight. Dallas play the Timberwolves out west. Indiana will play the Celtics in the Eastern Conference. Credit to Indiana. Yes, the Knicks were wounded. OG Anunoby probably shouldn't have played in Game 7, but he did. Josh Hart wounded. Jalen Brunson had to leave the game with a fractured hand. Hartenstein compromised. No Mitchell Robinson. No Julius Randle. But even after all that, you still look at it and go, wow, that's one of the more impressive Knicks seasons in recent memory. But the Pacers shot 67% from 3 in Game 7, which is the highest percentage in a Game 7 in league history. They were just on it. Credit to guys like Halliburton, Nesmith, knocking down everybody was knocking down shots. Nesmith 8 for 8 from the field. Miles Turner 7 for 11. Halliburton 10 for 17. Nembhard 8 for 10. McConnell 6 for 8 off the bench. 12 points, 7 assists, 2 rebounds, a block. I don't give the Pacers much of a chance against the Celtics. The one chance they do have is to me, if I'm playing the Celtics, I'm playing them man-to-man defense, and I'm not helping that often, because what they're going to do, whether it's Tatum or whether it's Jaylen Brown, they're going to throw the ball into the corner, and Al Horford or Derek White or Drew Holiday are going to knock down a corner 3. That's what they like to do. I'm okay if Jason Tatum wants to take 30 shots from the top of the 3-point line and shoot that shot. He loves to do it. Dribble, dribble, dribble for 18 seconds, take that shot. He'll knock some down because he's Jason Tatum. He's a great player, one of the best players in the world. But I'm okay with that possession if I'm Indiana. I'll take my chances on that. Or if I'm staying on my man and the Celtics want to go and have a 2-point contest, I'm okay with that as well. Because Indiana, we know what they're going to do. They're going to shoot a ton of threes, just like the Celtics. They both love the three ball. And they're going to pull up, shoot a ton of them. It was weird because on Sunday they only shot 24. They made 13 of them. 50. It's incredible what they did. 35 from the Knicks. But rebound tough. Turner, Nesmith, get there, find rebounds. Because Kristaps Porzingis is not available, make it tough on Al Horford, who's up there in age, who is not used to playing that huge of minutes. All that being said, I love Indiana's bench, but the Celtics have a hell of a bench as well. With when Cornette comes on the floor and Peyton Pritchard knocks down threes. I got the Celtics in 5. Not really their fault that they're going to have an easy path to the NBA Finals, but they're going to. Good team. Really good 60-plus wins in the regular season. But I got the Celtics in 5 beating the Pacers. Great for the Pacers to even get this far, but I think this is the end of the line for them. Out west, Timberwolves down 20 in the third quarter. They rally to beat the defending champion, the Denver Nuggets. Anthony Edwards was 6 for 24 from the field, but it was his defense. It was the defense of Rudy Gobert, of Karl-Anthony Towns that won them the game. Not to mention that Michael Porter Jr. couldn't knock down a shot, and Aaron Gordon was missing in action. But they play such hard defense. They help one another. They make it extremely tough to get off good looks. You go through an entire possession, and Jokic, tired, has to shoot a 3 from the top of the key, and it's not a good look, and he did knock it down more often than not. So I think the Timberwolves want to stick to that game plan. Allow Karl-Anthony Towns to be himself. Anthony Edwards will be more efficient than 6 for 24. But Gobert, take what's available. McDaniels was great in that game. Naz Reid, come off the bench. Give us some good minutes. Defense, 3-point shots. And I think their defense will be critical as you got Luka and Kyrie coming in. Who's going to take Luka? To me, most possessions, it's going to be Anthony Edwards. Because he's so athletic, he's so dynamic. He can make it tough on Luka when he's got the ball, be in his face, make life difficult. Or Mike Conley Jr., who's a solid defender as well. But Denver's got some bench players, just like Minnesota. Dallas trusts in their guys to knock down 3-pointers. They trust in themselves as a team. They're fun to watch. You look at Luka, you look at Kyrie, and they'll give guys the ball in big spots, whether it's PJ Washington, whether it's Derek Lively, who made some big shots in Game 6 down the stretch in that really entertaining, thrilling game against the Oklahoma City Thunder that ended that series. I think this one's going to be close. Dallas was in a conference final 2 years ago. They ultimately lost that series to Golden State. I like the play of Dallas a lot, but I look at Edwards and Gobert, and I think the lack of size could hurt Dallas as this series goes on. I'm going to pick Minnesota in 7 because I have that much respect for Dallas and the way they play and the way they approach it. Another really close series. Celtics will be waiting on this winner, if you ask me, which will help them get even more rest going down the stretch. But I got Celtics in 5, T-Wolves in 7, getting to the NBA Finals over the Dallas Mavericks. That's it for today. Be back on Thursday. We will recap Rangers Panthers game 1, which will take place tomorrow. Also recap the first 2 games in the NBA conference finals. Not to mention the start of the golf tournament in Texas. We'll update you on some MLB action. Blue Jays have won 2 in a row, albeit against bad teams, but they've won 2 in a row. We'll see if they can continue their momentum. Some Astros are kind of on the rise lately. Yankees don't lose. They're playing great baseball. So we'll have more of that coming on Thursday. We'll talk to you then. Until next time, take care, stay healthy. I'm Noah Warren. This is To The Point.